do this. He lets me sit in a class that he teaches just before we do the case study. And so I've asked him, for those of us who might want our minds stretched a little bit, to go to the flip chart and do this little drawing that you do in the class that you teach, and just pretend like we're all Harvard students, and we'll save about 10 grand, and go through your little deal here a minute.
Okay, Bill, what I'm going to do is talk about what is called service profit chain. You can call it service success chain. Research done by 3 of my colleagues, Jim Heskett, Earl Sasser, and Len Schlesinger, all 3 of whom you know. And I'm going to really summarize this in 3 minutes, a 90-minute lecture in 3 minutes. So I'm going to assume you are, 20, 30 times smarter here than Harvard students. So they call this profit, but let's just call this success, not just profit, success on whatever dimension. And on this dimension is loyalty, client-customer loyalty. And question 1, what's the relationship between customer loyalty and success? Is it A, linear, B, kind of like this, or C, convex? And the answer is it is convex, which means don't be too delighted if your customers are kind of mediocrely, lukewarmly positive towards you. Be very happy if they are totally in tune, totally loyal to you. But then comes the next question, what's the relationship between client loyalty and client satisfaction? And is that relationship linear, concave, or convex? And again, the relationship we find out is convex, which means don't be too happy if your clients move from being somewhat indifferent to lukewarmly positive, somewhat positive. But be very, very happy if they move from being delighted to being absolutely delighted, because that will mean a significant change in their loyalty. What you're looking for, and I guess in this setting people will appreciate it, what you're looking for are apostles. People who will go out and tell others how delighted they are with your service. And you don't want somebody down here. So
What would you call those down there?
we call them terrorists.
Terrorists.
Okay? So satisfaction leads to loyalty, leads to success. What leads to satisfaction? Well, value leads to satisfaction. But what is value? Value is a function of experience, what you have experienced, minus expectation, what you expected. Now, what's the relationship between this delta, between experience and expectation and satisfaction? Is this linear? Is this B or is this C? Well, the answer is it is C.
That was obvious to all of us, but go ahead.
Well, absolutely. And let me expand a little bit more for those to whom it was obvious. If your experience is more than expectation and you go ahead and further improve the experience, your client will be somewhat more satisfied. But if their experience is worse than their expectation, they are going to be really, really upset. So if the choice is between giving them steady service which keeps them somewhat happy, or giving them very variable service where sometimes they'll be delighted and sometimes they'll be mad, guess what kind of service you want to give them?
Yeah, the more consistent.
Consistent service. Now, what leads to good service experience? What leads to good service experience is, in fact, loyal staff. If you think of the relationship or the cost of staff turnover, people generally think cost of staff turnover is recruitment cost, training cost, but guess what's the biggest element of that cost? The biggest element of that cost is dissatisfied clients as your staff is learning how to become better. Now, what will make staff loyal? Staff will be loyal if they are satisfied. And when will staff be satisfied? If the work environment is good. So if you want to follow the service profit chain principle, what's the first thing a leader should do? First thing the leader should do is create a positive work environment. Positive work environment will lead to satisfied staff. Satisfied staff will be loyal. Loyal staff will also contribute to a good work environment. But loyal staff will also create good value for clients. Good value leads to satisfied clients. Satisfied clients will be loyal. And loyal clients will give you rewards in terms of profit, success, growth, happiness everywhere.
When's the test? Isn't that fascinating?
So thumb rule here, if you want to play this service profit chain game, start by paying attention to those who work for you. And then they will pay attention to those who are your clients, who you are serving, and they'll reward you with loyalty.
Yeah. Now, can you see, when you are exposed to teaching like that, can you see the crossover value? I mean, you're all making the kind of interpretation to life in church world. And when we create environments where staff thrive, they have the direct access to the congregation and tend to build into them, which completes that whole cycle. And again, I just thank you so much for doing that. It wasn't even the real reason we brought you here, but it was like, just a bonus or something. So
happy to do this.
Okay. Now, the real reason we brought you here is because you've done some new research, and you and I have talked about this when we have lunch after class. And you wrote a paper that stirred up quite a bit of controversy, and the paper is entitled "The Risky Business of Hiring Stars." Now, in the church world, we can't call anybody a star for obvious reasons. If you read the scriptures, that's kind of not the idea, but we know what he means. The risky business of hiring peak performers, high capacity people who are working in other organizations. Now, when I read this paper, I broke out in a cold sweat, because I have been telling summit attenders for many years that if you lack someone on your staff and you're looking for someone and you can't hire from within, obviously look for someone who's doing extremely well in another church, and if they would fit your culture and environment. So that's probably the greatest likelihood of you having a good experience filling that position. And I've been sort of leading you to believe that if you hire a high-performing person from another church, then likely they will be a high-performing person in your church. I read this paper, this guy's done all kinds of research, and he begs to differ. Now, let's unpack this a little bit. This is utterly fascinating to me. You did research on stock analysts. Now, that's not the field of many of us here. Explain what a stock analyst is and why you chose to do your research there.
Stock analysts are people who are employed by investment banks, and their job is to look at companies and give their recommendations whether to buy stock in those companies or to sell stock in those companies. If there's any professional who thinks that they carry the skills themselves, it is stock analysts, because they say, wherever we sit, our job is to analyze outside companies. We make our reports public. So if there is any profession, any job in which you would think that somebody carries the skills with them from job to job, it would be stock analysts.
So you actually tried to find the context where your research could be sort of proof tested by interchangeability dynamics.
Exactly.
Okay. So you went into the study believing that if a top performing stock analyst in one company were hired to another company, they would succeed just as well as they did in the previous company.
Right.
And what did you find?
So here, let me just put it in the form of a few questions. Question one. So analysts are stars and non-stars. Stars are high performers recognized outside as high performers. Who do you think moves more, first of all, from firm to firm? Stars or non-stars? What would you think? Non-stars tend to move more. Next question.
Just keep being bold.
Stars may be of two kinds. Long-lived stars, people who have been stars for 5 years or more, or new stars, people who've been star for a year or less? Who do you think moves more, long-lived stars or new stars? New stars. New stars tend to move twice as often as non-stars, who tend to move twice as often as long-lived stars. In fact, within new stars, we have another group that we call shooting stars. People who are stars only for a year and then never again. And they tend to move the most. So that's the first element. Who moves most?
Any theory why those shooting stars move most?
It'll become clearer. Give me 2 minutes.
Oh, wait. I'm always a little ahead of you,
You're
Ashish,
ahead
you know.
of the game, Bill. Now comes the second question, which was what you were asking. What do you think happens to the performance of stars after they move? What do you think happens? It goes down. And not just for the 1 year when we might think that they're just adjusting to their environment. For the 5 years that we track them after their move, stars who moved, their performance was poorer than those stars who stayed in their firms. Next question. What do you think happens to the performance of other people in the department that the star joins? That goes down too. Because now you are struggling for resources, you're struggling for status, you're struggling for a position. Next question. Most of these analysts are hired by investment banks which are publicly quoted, so we can look at stock market's reaction to news that a star has just been hired. How do you think the stock market reacts to news that you have just hired a star? It goes down. In fact, the stock market says, congratulations, Bill, you've just hired a star. You've just suffered the winner's curse.
Winner's curse.
Absolutely. You have outbid everybody else for the performance of a star, and now the performance of the star is going to decline, and not only their performance is going to decline, the performance of other people in that department that they're joining is also going to decline. Now, why do you think this happens? Star's performance goes down on moving. The reason is that a star is a star not just because of their innate skills, but also because of what we call the platform.
The system that
the system, the organization, the department, the people around them. And hiring firms as well as these star analysts always underestimate the value that is contributed by the platform.
Yes.
Okay? Now, stars might join in one of different ways. They might join to strengthen an existing department, or they might join to start something new, or they might join to replace somebody. Guess when does the performance of the star decline the most?
I'm not guessing. I've been wrong on every one so far.
The first one, first choice, when they are brought in to strengthen an existing department. Because if they are brought in to start their own franchise, they'll bring their own team with them. If they are brought in to replace somebody, the platform exists and they are not fighting with someone. But if they are brought into an existing platform with everybody else being there, there's jostling, there's struggle, they have less of an access to the platform, performance declines the most.
Okay, in one of your writings, you mention that transferring a star is like doing an organ transplant.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Okay, so just like people are stars, firms have status also, or organizations have status also. Stars can move from one organization to another organization roughly the same status, or higher status, or lower status. When do you think performance of stars declines the most?
When they move to smaller ones.
To lower status.
Yeah.
Because in fact, status is in some ways a proxy for platform. So beware, first of all, beware if you are a second-tier institution and you think that you can quickly improve performance by going to a first-tier institution and plucking a star from there and paying them a lot or giving them a lot of rewards and bringing them in. Because on average, that strategy does not work. Now, in a few instances, If we looked at 24 investment banks over 9 years, only 3 banks it happened. Only in a few instances, hiring in a star did not lead to the star's performance declining. And then we interviewed those people and tried to find out why it was so. And that's where some of them used the term, hiring a star is like an organ transplant. Or some of them said it's like a merger. Only 10% of the value is created in the actual hiring. 90% of the value is created in the post-hiring integration of the star.
Wow.
Now, in a number of organizations, the way a star is hired, we say, Bill, welcome, join our organization, now do your magic. And then Bill has no idea about this organization. He's saying, where's the fax machine? And then I meet you 6 months later and I say, oh, Bill, you are in my organization? I had no clue at all. In that kind of organization, Bill is not going to do his magic upon being hired. On the other hand, there are other organizations which say, Bill, join our organization, and then they start integrating them in, socializing them into the organization, socializing the rest of the organization to that individual. Those organizations that pay the attention, the time to bringing them in and integrating them in, do not suffer this penalty. Okay, so if you have to hire a star, pay attention to the post-hiring integration.
Okay, let's take a pause and try to reflect on what this means for churches. Okay. First of all, your research shows that even though someone does a fantastic job in Church A, and Church B has the same value systems and vision, and so there is a distinct likelihood they will perform at a lesser level for a long period of time in Church B.
Yes.
And you would recommend that before you hire a high-performing person out of Church A, that you look deeply into what's making the person successful, the team around them, the training that goes on in that church, those factors?
Exactly. Couple of thumb rules. If you have to hire...
Thumb rules?
Or sort of, yeah.
Rules of thumb.
Rules of thumb.
Yeah,
let's be efficient here, Bill.
You got me there.
So, if you are hiring stars, number one, it's better to hire them with the team around them than to just pluck them out. Sometimes people say, that's the star. Who cares about the other staff around them, the other analysts around them? Just pluck them out and take them. In fact, organizations which hired entire teams, their stars' performance tended to not decline as much as those which hired just the stars.
So go to Church A, and then if you're looking for a youth pastor, hire the youth staff.
Exactly. If that's the path you want to go, that's what you do. Okay?
Got it, everybody? Instead of hiring a worship leader, you hire the whole worship department.
If you are going that path, do that. Second, it gets better. Second, you can hire new people, as I mentioned earlier, to do 3 things: strengthen an existing department or existing team, replace someone, or start something new. It's always better to hire someone from the outside if you are starting someone new rather than strengthening an existing team.
Okay.
So strengthening an existing team just by taking somebody and transplanting them on the team, on average, does not work. On the other hand, if you want to start a new franchise, do something new, then hiring someone from the outside makes sense.
The likelihood of that succeeding goes up.
Goes up. But let me just sort of back up for a second and say, as an organization, you can have 3 strategies on developing your people. And again, let me use a baseball analogy. My son is a baseball fan, and we are from Boston, so so I'm going to use my son's point of view here. Strategy 1 is what he thinks is the Red Sox strategy. which is have a very strong farm team and build your stars in your farm team, and then do everything you can to bring them into the major leagues and hold on to them. So strategy one is grow your own stars internally and do everything you can to hold on to them once they become stars. Strategy two is the hated Yankees strategy.
Which just endeared you to our whole New York
what
region.
can I do?
Yeah.
You know, father of a 17-year-old in Boston, what else could Yankees be? Their strategy, or at least his view of their strategy, who cares about developing your farm team? Go out, pluck stars from wherever they are, pay them a lot of rewards, give them lots of satisfaction, bring them in your team will be star-studded, and you will succeed. Strategy number three, what used to be the Montreal Expos. Get people in your farm team, some of them will develop, some will not. Those who develop will then become very expensive, you lose them, such is life, start developing more people.
Do you have a preference of the three?
Well, you know, it's a total secret given them that I'm from Boston. But we use this in investment banks, and we said, which of these three strategies leads to long-term success?
Yeah.
Which means, which investment bank has the strongest research departments? Where do analysts become stars first and earliest, and most analysts become stars? Not surprisingly, the first strategy systematically outperforms the second strategy, systematically outperforms the third strategy, which suggests that life is not like baseball. If you look at the Yankees World Series championships, and right, so if you are running a professional service organization, so the kind of bottom line result in what we say is there is no shortcut to building a high-performing organization with stars. If you want to do it if you want to do it sustainably, you start by creating an environment where you will build stars, an environment where they'll feel loyal to the organization and they'll stick with the organization. Yeah. That strategy systematically outperforms the other two strategies.
And that's by research now. That's not just theory anymore.
That's by research. That's with investment banks.
And again, for those of us in church work, when he says there just are no shortcuts, that's been my experience. The best staff that we have around Willow Creek Community Church over the years, the 3 decades we've been around, have been the staff that we've developed from right out of our congregation. I think over 50% of our staff over the years has come from the congregation, just high-performing volunteers who we challenged to leave the marketplace and to join our staff. And because they felt a kind of call from God, they would do that, and then we would try to develop them over time, invest in them, give them opportunities and pass-fail situations, and hopefully they would get better. And once they get better, you do everything you can to try to hang on to them. You can't always, in the church world, of course, it's a little different because you have this mysterious movement of the Holy Spirit where someone feels called to help another church, and it's not about money. It's not about all rewards that you can dangle in front of anybody. They just feel called away, and then you bless them and go have a good cry. And then other times, we have had success in hiring some people from the outside. When our greatest successes have been when we've known the other church extremely well, when we've known the person that we're looking at for a long time, when they've been in our environment enough so that there are no surprises, and when we know that there will be a chemistry fit in our environment, then we've had quite a high rate of success taking that approach.
Bill, you mentioned some people leave, and that just, I was thinking something sparked because of that. Really good professional service organizations, when people leave the organization, they leave as ambassadors of that organization. And they become people who will tell others what a wonderful experience they had. So if somebody is leaving the organization, what you said, bless them or tell them, go have a good try, make sure that at the time of exit, they leave with a positive experience, a sense of goodwill for the organization. Who knows where they'll be a few years from today.
Yeah.
Some of the top professional service organizations spend at least as much time in helping people exit as they do in helping people enter. So I want
Just
to emphasize
so that they
aspect.
can keep the relationship alive and they can
Mami, sos el amor de mi vida.
Hace falta que te diga que me muero por tener algo contigo. Es que no te has dado cuenta de lo mucho que me cuesta ser tu amigo. Ya no puedo acercarme
Qué mujer increíble.
sin deseártela de una manera loca.
Dije, bebé, que te quiero.
Necesito controlar tu vida, ver quién te besa, quién te abriga.
Me encanta. ¿Qué dijiste? Ya.
Hace falta que te diga que me muero por tener algo contigo.